Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, get ready to rumble with the dynamic duo of the podcast arena, introducing Dawn the Dominator Davis and her tag team partner, Josh the Juggernaut Johnson, the tag team sensation that's sweeping the nation. They're not just hosts, they're the heavyweight champions of banter, bringing you the smackdown on all things wrestling. So buckle up, tag in, and prepare for a wild ride with Top Tier, where the conversations are as electrifying as a top rope shooting star press, baby. Let's go.
Ooh. It started hot. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The
I like
chills.
I'm the juggernaut, as Okada would say. Bitch.
Bitch. Yep.
That was fantastic. And Okada is the right person to reference because on today's episode we will be discussing the AEW Collision from September 14th. And let's go. So we ended up kicking off the show with the arrival of the Escape Mobile, the weird black box truck, what they call a bus, that spits out TNT champion Jack Perry at high speeds, so high that he must take both a sip of coffee and then spit out and throw out the coffee on his high speed entrance into the ring.
My man was not feeling that coffee.
No.
My thing is, you didn't try that shit in the car? I guess he was just driving and screaming. So he didn't have time to, he didn't have time to give it a try until he got out. And then he was like, this is shit! Yeet!
Maybe that was the case. Maybe he tried it and thought it was cold. I don't know, but
yeah.
It was just kind of weird that he took a sip, spit it out, and then threw it out all at the same time. I mean, why wouldn't you just throw it out then? I don't know. Maybe he just wanted the last taste of coffee, but he couldn't swallow it for some reason. I don't know.
I don't know. But his rage. His scapegoat rage.
That's it. He was so filled with rage that his body had no room left for another, not even a swig of coffee.
Not even. His body was like, reject! Immediately.
Immediately. Yeah. So he's beelining for the ring, and his opponent is kind of the what did he say? He was like the temporary EVP or the honorary EVP. I don't know. Christopher Daniels, who? The role he's been playing.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, who, Christopher? You wouldn't be the only one. Dude was a legend back in the day.
Yeah. I know. No disrespect. I'm just kidding.
But here I thought we were in for a bit of a story arc match, right? Because he's the only EVP that's kind of the mouthpiece for Tony Khan in opposition to the Elite, the Young Bucks in specific. And so I thought, okay, now here's a shot that Jack Perry, because they pitched it as just it's an open challenge, and Christopher Daniels recalls that he is a wrestler first and foremost before he was ever an interim EVP.
I used to wrestle.
Yeah, right. It occurred to him that day, and I'm thinking they made it sound innocuous enough, but I mean, you do realize that you're the only opposition EVP that is now willingly stepping into the ring with a member of the Elite.
Right. And so you think... Right. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So I was sitting here thinking there's obviously going to be a story for this, right? There's an opportunity for the Elite to take out the one bit of opposition that kind of has been standing in their way.
Right.
Uh, Spoiler, none of that occurred. Like,
No.
none of that occurred. In fact, this was a relative squash match for Jack Perry.
Yeah.
He got in there. I think Christopher Daniels may have gotten like 2 moves of offense, and the rest of it was Jack Perry just obliterating him and
Yeah.
ending it with his version of, I want to say, a V trigger, but it's also sort of like a Psycho knee. It's like if the Psycho knee and the V trigger had like a weird kid that was like a flying knee but only half as high.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then just as rapidly as Perry like ran screaming out of the scapegoat mobile, he leaves the ring and beelines back out into the scapegoat mobile.
Yeah.
And says like one weird cryptic line that I'm
If you don't
struggling
like
to
me?
remember.
Isn't it something like,
Oh,
if you don't like me, then you don't like the truth, or something like that?
something like that. Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, like, this guy, like, I don't know where he's going in such a hurry. I don't know where he's coming from in such a hurry. But my man has shit to do. Okay, he got shit. He comes out of the arena after winning his match. He yeets his belt inside of his skatemobile, whatever, like his ex-girlfriend, and just jumps in that bad boy and hauls out. I don't know where he's going. I assumed it was a bathroom issue. That's just me. Maybe, and you know what? I haven't heard different, so that's what I'm gonna say. It's a bathroom issue. My man didn't like using bathrooms in public places. He has to go home. It is what it is. Happens to all of
Yeah,
us.
something. Hey, if it's part of your shtick, it's part of your shtick. But I mean, you're effectively just capping your own TV time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Maybe he's from the school of thought that less is more. Because there was definitely less when there could have been more.
Yep.
And
More
so
storylines, like, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, this here's practically like just an accidental storyline, I guess. But I guess that wasn't a direction they wanted to go with it, is all I could assume. But
Yeah.
that was that. After that, we move on to a match with. Let's see. Oh, sorry, we don't move on to a match. We move backstage where we recap what happened at All Out, leading to Bryan Danielson being attacked by the former BCC or the new BCC, whatever Jon Moxley's new little renegade faction is going to identify themselves as.
Yeah, we'll call them the Jon Moxley group.
The Moxleys.
The JMG.
The JMG. And then after we see that piece of recapped footage, we cut backstage where we hear from Wheeler Yuta, who is very distracted and having a hard time with the interview because he's still reeling and I guess broke up about what happened because, he watched Danielson get beat up and nearly killed with a bag over his head.
I don't know if you heard the chuckle. It was not me laughing at that. I mean, I'm not that sinister. The laugh was because you said reeling, and I put reeling as Wheeler's first name instead of Wheeler. So
Wheeler Yuta. He was
so in my head, I'm like reeling Yuta, and to me, I'm all ha. So yeah. Anyway. Knee slapper.
Yeah, Reeler Yuta. Suffice it to say, he struggles through that interview because it apparently affected him quite deeply, and he's having trouble coming to terms with it.
Yeah.
And he is going to end up having a match later on in the evening against Anthony Henry, one half of the Workhorsemen. And I promise you, only like 3 people on Earth know or care about that last piece of information. Then we go back to ringside, and we have Kyle O'Reilly and Mark Briscoe stepping out onto the stage for the next match, and they are followed by Hologram before they head down to the ring.
I promised that I wouldn't deviate too much from the actual show topic, but I just want to point out that I think that it was very smart. Whoever came up with the idea, don't know who, but I think it was really smart to put Kyle O'Reilly with Mark Briscoe and Orange Cassidy, like just huge personalities, big faces. It was very smart to put Kyle there. Or I honestly feel as if he would disappear if they didn't.
I tend to agree. He is a very capable in-ring performer, but he didn't show much of a personality to latch onto until they sort of formed the conglomeration, and now with like over-the-top Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe is giving me life since the formation of the conglomeration. I mean, I like him before, but he has really gotten over with me since the conglomeration came into being. And Orange Cassidy is just Orange Cassidy.
Yeah.
So, you know, tossing Kyle in there has forced Kyle to like sort of tap into the less serious, less super generic pro wrestler persona that he had, and kind of get goofy with it, and it gives us something to latch on to. Yeah. And it's working for him. I know you mentioned not deviating too much, but these are good points. And it's surprising because they in the first match they missed a very obvious chance to promote a storyline, or maybe, like I said, maybe it was just one they didn't want to follow through on. But then the rest of the night, on Collision, they did so much character work and so much story work that it was mind-blowing. And this ties into what we were just saying about their treatment of Kyle O'Reilly. They've done fantastic with, you know, wrestlers like Ciabatta, you know, giving him Siri to kind of communicate with, so he has a shtick that, like, he stands out and it's funny. And then you've got Okada, who has decided that every time he utters a sentence, he will end it with the word bitch. And he's just become a troll as a member of the Elite. And he's hilarious. So, I just wanted to say all that to sort of extend the praise you were giving for how they treated Kyle O'Reilly to like a lot of members of their roster who could really fall through the cracks, like especially some of the ones from New Japan who are having to overcome, you know, in varying degrees, but language barriers and cultural barriers to try and get over with a Western audience, and they're doing fantastic. Kind of to that end, you know, we see, speaking of like kind of the foreign wrestlers showing up and you know, doing well for themselves in AEW and having their shtick really take off, we have the Kyle O'Reilly and Mark Briscoe are getting set, but they are also joined by Hologram, who seems to be doing very well with the AEW fans. I mean, he doesn't say a lot, but he sure performs well in the ring. Yeah. But out next after him is the Beast Mortos, who has absolutely blown me away with how good of an in-ring performer he is, but I love his Minotaur character and the fact that like he never says anything other than "Rawr," and it's so like in any other context it would be dumb, but he has made it amazing. He
cracks me up every time.
Yeah, he feels to me like he's everything Luchasaurus was trying to be.
Yeah.
And I get it. To Luchasaurus, but right now he's being Killswitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I get what you're saying. I'm happy that they're doing this with these guys, because again, there are other wrestling promotions that these dudes would be a part of, that they would basically fall through the cracks and they would just disappear. And I think AEW is the right place for them in this instance, because they're getting the attention. Orange Cassidy he was made for a promotion like AEW, honestly. And that's going all the way back to look at some of his older stuff, like looking at some of the matches that he was having in 2017 and whatnot. He was made for this type of promotion, this type of company. Mortos, another guy, I honestly think he would just fall through the cracks in a lot of other promotions. Mark Briscoe won't allow you to drop him anywhere. Mark Briscoe, he's too big for a promotion. He is Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe is just that.
Mark Briscoe is like I'm watching a cartoon in real life.
Yeah, and you know what? He gives me the vibe. I don't even know how to put it. He gives me the vibe of family. Like I don't know Mark Briscoe, but I feel that if I met Mark Briscoe, by the end of the day, we'd be eating a really good meal, sitting on somebody's porch drinking something. Like, you know what I mean? Like he gives me
chicken.
It would be probably. Oh yeah, but no, he gives me a very relatable type vibe. Like I don't know him, but I feel like he's kinfolk. And so, he's just, his personality is too big, man. He would, I think, be successful anywhere he went. He's just gonna make it happen. But putting him with Kyle O'Reilly, I'm putting those two together. It's like, again, like a brother thing between the two, and it's, the vibe is good to see. So instead of me forgetting about Kyle O'Reilly, again, he's amazing in the ring. He is, but I'm talking about personalities, kind of like AJ Styles, who I think is an amazing wrestler, but the personality isn't really. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I do.
It's right.
I do. And
so he's just one of those wrestlers that would just kind of fall through the cracks, because you got to have like a big personality for this stuff, you know. And Kyle O'Reilly, I think, would have just vanished. But instead, I have in my head, when I think of Kyle now, I think of Mark Briscoe telling him to hold his baby, which was his belt, and handing it to him, and then him bouncing it like an actual baby and tossing it in the air.
Yeah.
Right. I think about stuff like that instead, and that is a smart move. Whoever did that, chef's kiss. That's all.
Well, I there's two things I would like to touch on based on that. Yeah. One, I think it's because there's more of kind of an open-ended format in AEW. Like, over in WWE, luchadors feel like they're a side attraction, right? Like, here's our visiting guest luchadors, but we all know that we're, Western-based power wrestlers here. Like, that's who gets to go to the top. And, if you're a somewhat smaller stature wrestler, there's like a ceiling for that too. Whereas in AEW, I don't think so. And you made me think of that when you mentioned Orange Cassidy, who I think is amazing. But you're right.
God,
like in WWE, he would have never gotten off the ground because he's not the biggest guy in the room. And up until maybe recently, right? I know Triple H has started the new Triple H era, but certainly under Vince McMahon, somebody like Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe and some of these guys who aren't 7 foot tall and brick shithousey just weren't going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And over in AEW, Orange Cassidy is one of their international champions, like, who held the belt for the longest, and he's one of the most winning wrestlers on the roster.
Yep.
So it's really more like you get to be whatever you can get over with the fans, and you can, it's up to you, do your thing.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that openness. It's also why I think so many luchadors seem to be doing better in AEW. Not just, the fact that they're working with CMLL and I think AAA and definitely other promotions. The forbidden door that AEW has going on really sort of has given AEW a international feel. Like anybody can come in there and wrestle, and I really like that. I like that. I don't know how else to frame it, but like an openness that exists in AEW that's not quite as realized over in WWE.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be that way in the future under Triple H, but under Vince McMahon, he didn't even like to acknowledge that other promotions existed.
Yeah.
And he very much had a template in his own mind for who the top guy was going to be and who was going to succeed. Whereas in AEW, I feel like it's much more, the fans' choice. And a good example of that would be the rise of the Outrunners. And we'll talk more about that a little later. But
Yeah.
they're a great example of somebody who is now getting a push because they got over with the fans.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I do also think that, like, Kyle O'Reilly is being allowed to show more of his personality. Because another stigma, this is the second thing I wanted to mention, and I'm not trying to slam the WWE, I'm just trying to point out differences, right? And these are ways that these two promotions are different. AEW has also kind of a better track record, again, Orange Cassidy being a good example, but also Mark Briscoe, of allowing some wrestlers to show a sense of humor and not necessarily be so serious, but still being able to be taken as serious wrestlers once the bell rings.
Yeah.
By contrast, in WWE, you could very easily fall into the situation where if you're a clown, then you're also the guy who's going to be losing most of the time.
Yeah.
You don't get to be comedic and also win and be badass.
Yeah, you have to have. It's very, very rare cases or special cases. Like R-Truth would be one that I would think of. He's very funny, but sometimes he gets a belt. So there's that.
There is that. But it can be a very difficult mold to break out of, or at least it used to be. Again,
yes, yeah.
I know Triple H is over there pulling levers and cranking wheels to get out from under the legacy, or the worst parts of the legacy of the Vince McMahon WWE, and reinvent it into something new.
Yeah.
And I'm liking what we've been seeing so far, so I'm curious to see what more comes of it.
Oh yeah.
But pulling back from the big sidetrack, after the Beast Mortos comes to the ring, we have the premier athletes, and I know I just said all of that about giving other talents a chance and whatnot, but man, for the life of me, I don't like the premier athletes. I just don't. But they're with the Beast Mortos, and that's pretty good.
I can take them or leave them, honestly. The only one that I really know by name is Tony Nese. And I think there's Ari Daivari. The other guy, I do not know. Sorry.
Mark something. Mark Sterling, I think. He's been portraying... He's a manager, and he portrays himself as an attorney. Right? Oh, or are you thinking of Josh Woods?
Josh Woods, the other wrestler, yeah.
So it's Arya Daivari, it's Tony Nese, it's Josh Woods, and it's Mean Mark Sterling, I think he's called. I think I might be getting that wrong.
Yeah, I think
that make up the premier athletes, and I understand that they're a heel faction. I get that, and that's not why I'm saying I'm not that big of a fan. I'm just not. Nothing about them grabs me. I haven't seen anything that's super amazing in the ring. But that's just me personally, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't change the fact that, to be perfectly honest, these men, the premier athletes, and Mark Briscoe, Hologram, Kyle O'Reilly, with the Beast Mortos on the Premier Athletes side, all put on a real banger of a match.
Yes. Yeah. They're not my favorite either, but I can say that they really threw down. They put on one hell of a match. It was pretty fun. Hologram was kinda... There was a botch there, one or two. but not. I mean, I'm not knocking any of these gentlemen for any mistakes or whatever that they may or may not make in the ring. It was just noticeable because he's normally very much on his game, so it was noticeable when
Yeah.
there was a slip up from him. That's all. But I mean, could have been nerves, could have been tired, could have been just a freaking accident. So, and it didn't prevent any moves from taking off. It didn't prevent the match from being good. It was just noticeable because, like I said, he's normally about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
but other than that, it was a pretty fun, good match.
Well, and we got to see some fun stuff here. We got to see everybody kind of hit their high spot moves. Like we got to see Mark Briscoe bring in the chair, and then actually in this one it was slightly different. He brought in the chair, and Mark Sterling interfered. I'm trying to remember if he hit Mark Sterling or something, or maybe he hit him with the chair. I don't remember the details specifically, but he ends up with Mark Sterling on all fours. So instead of launching himself onto everybody outside by way of the chair, he launched himself off of the back of Mark Sterling.
Yes.
And that was fantastic. And another high spot was the Beast Mordos hitting that Tornillo corkscrew dive between the middle and top rope that he does. And the Beast Mortos isn't like 7 foot tall, but he is a brick shit house. So it's incredible to watch him dive out and do that tornillo at super high speeds.
Yeah.
When he's just a little fire plug of muscle.
Yeah, and he comes in through the middle rope, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. So much could go wrong there. Like.
And yet, I have seen him do that move a lot since he's been over here in AEW, like the past, I want to say 3 or so months. And he nails it every time.
Every time.
And I'm always blown away by how much torque he manages to get on, because he spins fast, and he hits them like a missile.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, honestly.
I'm tickled pink with what we see the Beast Mordos do. Like, he is outstanding.
Agreed.
And so we also get some really cool spots between the Beast Mortos and Hologram, where Hologram, gets tossed around by the Beast Mortos, but then the Beast Mortos equally gets tossed around by Hologram's, like, super extra complicated lucha maneuvers.
Yeah.
And it's just a really solid match. I know I said I'm not a huge fan of the Premier Athletes, but I do remember that Tony Nese did like an outside dive that was like almost like a backflip plancha, and he nailed it. And I was like, okay, all right. It was notable because typically I'm not that up on Nese, but that move was impressive, and so I was like, all right, I see you. And it just ended up being a really solid, good wrestling match. And if I recall, this was another one that Hologram got the pin on, and he did it with sort of the unique... It's not quite a backslide. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's almost like a crucifix, but he doesn't set it up in the normal crucifix fashion. It's like he maneuvers them into the crucifix from on the ground.
Yeah.
And he gets the pin. And, I mean, that might be Hologram's finisher. It's hard to tell because the last few matches he's won it with different moves. But he's at least used this sort of like specialty pin before. So I couldn't tell you for sure if that's Hologram's finisher, because he doesn't consistently finish matches with the same maneuver.
Yeah.
But it was good. And you end up with a win for Mark Briscoe, Hologram, and Kyle O'Reilly once Hologram hits that specialty pin on Tony Nese.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Now, after the match, the celebration is cut short because the Beast Mortos rushed in to resume his attack on Hologram,
Yeah.
but the rest of the conglomeration fends him off, and he ends up leaving the ring. But
Not before giving us one more roar.
not before, yeah, we get the
He's out there on
roar.
he's out there on the apron. He rolls out, and then all you hear is a roar.
Roar! Yeah.
Gotta love
So,
it.
and surprisingly, I like clearly there's some sort of rivalry here between Mortos and Hologram, but on the way,
Yeah.
like when the Beast was backing away, you could hear that Kyle O'Reilly was calling him out, saying, "I want you, Mortos. I'm coming for you." So,
Yeah.
as much as I thought that that might end up leading into a match between Mortos and Hologram, I highly suspect that we will get the Beast Mortos versus Kyle O'Reilly next. Now, whether that'll be on Dynamite or Collision or even Rampage, I don't know. But I'm here for it because I think it could be a great match.
Oh, for sure.
And following the Beast leaving the ring and the end of that match, we head backstage where we see Renee Paquette, trying to get a word in with Orange Cassidy. Or at least she was going to try until the Big Bill,
said no with his foot.
Which leads into an attack from the Learning Tree, and they end up taking Cassidy's backpack, which they had stolen from him, and putting it over his head, and then absolutely just nailing him in the head with the framed picture he had of the best friends.
Yeah.
And I think then he said, "Well, here's to friendship," and then he was like, "Thanks, guys." He left.
Yeah, I wonder if they're gonna like why do they keep bringing that group up? You think
the best friends?
Yeah. I mean, you don't think they're coming? How would they put those two back together with Orange Cassidy?
I'm not sure how they could put together any of it because, like, one of them
like
retired.
That one guy's really gone, right? Yeah, he's really gone, right?
Yeah, I think he was too banged up to be able to put on too much more wrestling work, so he had one last match, and they rolled that into a storyline about the breaking up of the best friends.
Yeah. Wow, that sucks. That sucks so much.
So I don't think I'd be real surprised if they were making a comeback. I think it was probably just to show. I mean, what else would you expect to find outside of a championship belt? What else would you expect to find in Orange Cassidy's backpack?
I will refuse to answer that question.
Well, I'm just saying it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
You know, that was his whole thing for a while, and Orange that would be a bit on the nose. But Orange also was, I don't think he ever got over it. Like in the kayfabe for his character, I still think he's down about that whole situation.
Yeah.
He went from being on top of the world as the international champ with all of his best friends to one of them retiring, the other one turning on him and beating him up. And I apologize because I cannot remember the names of the two individuals that are members of the best friends right now.
Yeah.
And Chris Statlander, who turned heel and basically just turned on anybody that she called friend. Like she took a couple shots at Cassidy on the way through to Willow. So all of his friends, just that whole situation went up in smoke.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they're bringing it back or if it was just what was needed to sort of give weight to that interaction with the Learning Tree.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Because I mean, I know that. Well, even as I said it, I was like, I know that one guy is gone. Honestly, thought that he was retired. Yeah. So maybe it was just for the story with with the learning tree and Redwood and Bad Apple, or
Yeah, the bad apple Brian Keith.
yeah,
Okay, so for what it's worth, the people that we're trying to
Chris
remember
Taylor,
are Chuck Taylor and Trent
Trent
Beretta.
Beretta. Yeah.
Yep. So Chuck Taylor is the one that I think had to retire, and it was Trent Beretta who, like, Beretta's vendetta against Orange, which they haven't really done anything with. So I don't know what happened there, unless maybe Trent is on the injured reserve.
Yeah, I don't know where Trent went. And my brain, if we're gonna be technical about it, it was Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta, Chris Statlander, and that's where we met Wheeler Yuta at first. And Danhausen, where's Danhausen?
I have no idea. We haven't seen Danhausen in forever, so I don't even know anything about what's happening there. I'll look into it, but I haven't seen him at all.
Wasn't Rocky Romero kinda sorta in the Best Friends group? Like he every once in a while he associated or something like that.
I think so, but
not really in the group.
El Zucar, Sugar Sweet, Rocky Romero just kind of pops in wherever they can put him in there.
Yeah.
But I think it was just in service of the learning tree, to kind of keep the feud burning, and it was good. It made me feel kind of bad for old Orange Cassidy, and that's what you want a heel faction to do to the face, right? And it's like, oh man, now Orange really has to like beat the bark off the learning tree.
And speaking of feeling bad, the next match. Well, before that, we get a look at Stokely, somewhere,
which has been confirmed to be Stokely, because while we were watching it, we were like, "Who is that?" And I thought it looked like it was Stokely, but you never get a good shot of the face. And then on the internet, people thought like Bobby Lashley.
I read on a Reddit post that somebody was saying Bobby Lashley, and I'm like, maybe if that were his leg. Yeah, that'd be Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, not nearly big enough, but
like that's definitely a Bobby Lashley thigh. Bobbly, it's a Bobbly thigh.
Yep.
Yeah,
it wasn't Bobby Lashley. It was Bobbly Lashy, and it's different and not the same.
Yes, yeah, it's a miniature version of Bobby Lashley. No, not Bobby Lashley, guys. It was Stokely. And he was watching
Minishly.
He was watching AEW Revolution match that with Sting. You know, the match with Sting and Darby Allin versus the Young Bucks. That's what he was watching. Mm-hmm. Don't know what that was about, but that's what it was. And then we would go backstage where Mariah May is being extra, and talking about not doing her championship celebration.
So business as usual with old Mariah.
Yes, and that she wants Mina, and she's interrupted by Yuka. What's her name? Sasaki?
Yuka Sakazaki.
Yuka Sakazaki.
Sakazaki. Yep. Who is her character, as far as I can tell, is like the distillation of magical girl anime into one human being.
Yeah. And she's very tiny, and she's very cute. And
unbelievably high pitched.
Unbelievably high pitched. And then we go to ringside where Wheeler Yuta is looking what's the word?
Down and out, despondent.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah, he's looking. Yeah, his brain is adrift, and he heads to the ring for the next match with Anthony Henry, who is accompanied by Beef.
Beef. It's not just what's for dinner anymore. Now Beef is a professional wrestler.
If there was a camera, I'd be looking right at it when I say Beef. Yeah, he's not just what's for dinner. He's also for support. And
Yeah. Now we just need a wrestler named Pork and another one named Venison, and we could actually have a stable.
yeah, stable. Boom, boom.
But beef, though. I mean, come
Boom.
on.
Yes, but beef though. Man. So Anthony's really laying him out. He's really bringing it to him because Wheeler's just not there.
Yeah, I remember that one. Like Wheeler was like you said, despondent. So he's getting his ass handed to him because he
Yeah.
could just like care less. Like he's just checked out. But checked
Yeah.
out like in character, not Wheeler is checked out like like we say of like say Shayna Baszler's checked out. Like this is part of his story arc, is what we mean.
Yeah. And I mean, he's like he's really beating the stuffing out of Wheeler. Like he's going in on him with hold after hold, and Wheeler he's fighting his way back to his feet.
No. And he messes
he's
up one of his signature moves because he's just so out of it.
Yeah. There's one point where goodness, he almost gets a near fall. Anthony does once he gets him in the corner. And I'm trying to remember the moves here because this match was especially good with its storytelling and the wrestling itself. Like it was it was a very good match overall, but it was also one that was kind of told through physicality and also through
Yes.
the acting and the storytelling. So some of the moves are
Yes.
kind of important.
Yeah, and the one that I was referencing about the signature move is there's a move where Wheeler will go out between the middle rope and the bottom rope, like as if his opponent had thrown him out, and he grabs hold of the bottom rope and pulls himself back into the ring, usually either into a standing switch or even maybe a clothesline or a strike. And he went for that move and then let go and fell off. And having watched wrestling for as long as I have, I could tell that he did that on purpose, and it was part of his storytelling that he's not all there. He's too distracted about what had befallen Bryan Danielson and the breaking apart of the BCC. So he's filled with thoughts of being betrayed, of his friend Danielson being betrayed and beaten up, and so he's all over the place. He's just not here mentally in this match as part of a storyline. And
a great one.
To be perfectly fair, like neither of us were that interested in Wheeler Yuta until he
Not
really
at all, guys.
brought
Seriously.
it. Between the promos and the way that this storytelling was done in this match, like by the end of it, we were like, "Oh my God, we are cheering for Wheeler Yuta." So this is some of the best storytelling. Like, and this is kind of where, like, Collision decided that they are telling all of the story. Like, so many different story arcs and character developments ended up happening in this particular episode, and this was a big one right here with Wheeler Yuta. And so I agree with you. The in-ring storytelling was fantastic.
Yeah. And like so, I mean, at first the match was kind of slow. It was kind of a like a dread, like that's not the word I'm looking for. It was kind of a slog at first because I mean it was very much just Wheeler getting beat up or put into uncomfortable holds. But if you think about it, these are all things that Wheeler would have never allowed if he was at the top of his game. Whether or not you like his wrestling style, whether or not you like him at all, you can recall that when it comes to holds and other things like that, he's just not the dude to be messed with there. And yet here he is getting put in all kinds of holds by somebody like Anthony, right? While Beef is on the sidelines cheering for him. There's even a situation where Anthony sweeps Yuta's feet from out under him, right? So that kind of stuff. And then Yuta he goes outside of the ring. He's like sitting in a chair by the barricade, and Henry catches him, gives him a flying kick. He brings Yuta back into the ring. Like he's near fall after near fall, and Wheeler is managing to kick out. So he's barely keeping his head above water here.
Yeah, he's just enough invested in the match to kick out, but not much more than that. So it's essentially watching Anthony Henry perform his offense on like a training dummy, nearly. Because Yuta's just like, checked out.
It's like when you're playing 2K24 or WWE, just pick any one of them really, and you're practicing, or you're picking your moves, and the other character doesn't have any moves. He's just standing there while you're performing.
Just a practice dummy.
Yeah, that's pretty much what Wheeler is right now. But then Henry starts mocking Yuta, bringing up Danielson and slapping him in the face, and I can even hear. Yeah, I can even hear Beef on the outside saying, "Take it easy," to Anthony at that point. But that's when Yuta gets fired up, and I mean, he starts putting Henry through the ringer. He sends him to the court. Go ahead.
Before we get too far from that particular moment in time, this is where Wheeler kind of won me over with his ability to act in the ring. Because as checked out as he was, the switch on where he became immediately like the avatar of rage when Anthony Henry slapped him and mentioned Danielson was palpable. Like, this dude became all that is anger. And I just wanted to mention that. Please continue.
No, but I mean, he sends Henry to the corner. The ref gets into Yuta's face. Yuta shoves him away. He goes back to attacking Henry. Henry, fights him off again, just like flailing his arms and going, nah! Like he's pushing him away. They get out on the apron. Yuta lays him out again. Then he attacks Beef.
Attacks Beef is like an understatement. Like, he straight up kicked Beef in the face, and for the remainder of the rest of what would be this match, Beef is laid out. Like, Beef could be shipped off to the butcher. He's done.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I mean, just to paint the picture, Yuta, when he went off on Henry, went off on him in a way I have never seen Wheeler Yuta go off on anyone. Like, his strikes looked way more vicious. Like, he was vicious. And it was impressive the way he just dismantled this dude, because he was so annoyed
0 to 100.
He mentioned Danielson. Like, it's like, you could have beat up Wheeler all day, but now you done messed up and mentioned his friend, and this is why you were going to the hospital tonight instead of just losing the match. It
could have just been an easy night for us all, but nay. And so he after he beats the brakes off of Beef. Say that 3 times fast. He brings Henry back into the ring. He continues to beat the stuffing out of him. He gives him some hammering elbows, and then he puts in the cattle mutilation, and that's it, baby. Once the cattle mutilation is in, Henry's out. That was it. The ref calls for the bell. He's still holding that. He's still holding the move. The ref's, getting on him about it. He finally lets him go, only to go after the ref.
It's like he was in a blind rage, Yuta was, because he got up and went after the ref, and the ref had to like, whoa, and then Wheeler backed up, almost as if he snapped out of the trance of rage. And
then he was like,
he kind of put his hands up in an apologetic way, but then he just leaves the ring. And to be fair, that cattle mutilation was, one, perfectly executed, but also kind of not really necessary, because You mentioned that he gave him, some of the elbows, some
Yeah,
hammering
like
elbows. He gave him all the hammering
all
elbows,
the
like
hammering elbows. My man
like
was
an uncomfortably long number of hammering elbows. Like if you at any point over in WWE you ever thought, man, Sheamus gave an uncomfortable a number of beats of the Bodhrán. This was that, but with those drop elbows that the BCC likes to do onto someone's collarbone from
yeah.
behind.
Which I'm sorry, that looks like a bad time. It just does.
Yeah. Yep.
For all involved, it looks like a bad thing. So, yeah, he fucking after that he was done. Like honestly, he didn't need the cattle mutilation. But I'm not gonna tell Wheeler. You gonna tell Wheeler not to do it? I'm not gonna tell him not to do it. So he does it. The ref's like, please, let him go. Don't kill him. And then Wheeler's like, I'll kill you. And the ref's like, and then Wheeler's like, oh snap, sorry. Legit, guys, that's exactly what happened. Exactly that way.
Yeah, and mad props. Like, this could have looked, given the story that they were trying to tell, it could have gone the direction of maybe looking hokey, but Wheeler sold it perfectly and gained a ton of respect from you and I. And hopefully, probably a lot more people that saw it, maybe saw Wheeler in a new light after this match. Because we saw stuff out of Wheeler that we had just never been given the opportunity to see. Like, Vicious Wheeler is a thing of beauty. Like, yes to all of that. But his ability to convey the emotions visually that were needed to be conveyed for this match to be pulled off correctly was outstanding. Like, if there's an acting award for pro wrestlers, like, Wheeler just got nominated. Yeah. So, fantastically well done.
Yeah, I agree.
So, moving on from the very dramatic Wheeler-Yuta match, we are then taken backstage where we hear from the Professor, Serena Deeb, as she is telling Queen Aminata she's not truly ready to become the champion or to take on the champion. And telling Queen Aminata to let the Professor show her how it's done before running, down to have... What am I trying to say here? She wanted to... The Professor wanted to show her how it's done. The end. And
she
Queen Aminata
is bringing that up for some reason.
Face. Like, last I checked, a queen outranks a professor. But we'll go with it. But suffice it to say, Queen Aminata is very skeptical. Like, she gives her sort of a, okay, yeah, right, whatever. And if I recall correctly, I think she even outright said that she doesn't have time for this and just kind of blew her off. Yeah. And that ends that particular segment, but that's foreshadowing for the events that come a little bit later. Next, we briefly see a video package from where Anna Jay went and wrestled in Japan and claims that taught her that she wants and expects more, and she issues a warning to the rest of the women's division. And for my part, I'm all for it. The women's division could definitely use more strong competitors, and so bring it, Anna. I absolutely believe you are capable of going in the ring. What was it, last year? Maybe a little bit longer, that we saw an absolute banger of a match between Anna Jay and, was it Julia Hart? Who, unfortunately, Julia Hart is out, I think, what was it, a shoulder injury?
I think, a shoulder.
Because she was really on the rise as a women's champion there for a bit, but then I think injury took her out of the picture. Not too different than Miss Hayter, Jamie Hayter, if I recall correctly. But I digress. From that video package, we are brought to ringside where Private Party and Commander are coming out onto the stage and, attempting, it looks like, to have the match that they were gonna have on Dynamite, but that got obliterated by John Moxley's with the Moxleys came out and absolutely destroyed them and their opponents.
Yeah.
So,
let's see.
From the stage, we hear from Private Party as they offer to fight the Trios champions before this match gets underway. And this match is Private Party and Commander versus John Cruz, Lord Crew, and Ren Jones. So basically, Jobber A, Jobber B, and Jobber C.
Pretty much, yeah.
And this is surprising because Private Party is usually kind of the jobbers of the group. So here we have Private Party and Commander being given a squash match. And it more or less is that. It's a very high speed, very chaotic match that sees Private Party and Commander pretty much obliterate all three of their opponents before Quinn ultimately gets the pin for the win. And
they looked good.
I have to agree. I mean, it wasn't as in-depth or lengthy or a great deal of storytelling, but it did get to showcase just what, if they're not obliterated by, Moxley's group, what Private Party and Commander can actually do in the ring. And if I recall, their finish was pretty fantastic. There was a running shooting star press, I think, from Commander off the top of the ropes, like the one that he does. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, Private Party got their opponent, who I don't remember, one of the three jobbers. I can't remember if it was A, B, or C. They get him up on the top rope, and I think it's Quinn that does a Hurricane Rana, and then his partner, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on who the members of Private Party are.
Yeah,
but the move was cool. Basically it was a Hurricane Rana into a cutter / like an RKO. And the combination of the two, was phenomenal to watch because that takes really good timing.
Yeah.
And it was just a really cool team finish and a strong finish for Private Party. And Private Party's whole demeanor, and I don't know if it's because they were upset, about what had happened with John Moxley's group, or if it's maybe them turning a new leaf to be taken a bit more seriously. Like, they still do the whole shots. But their approach to the match seemed like they were on a mission. Like, they were very serious. And then when they were leaving the ring, a little bit more serious. Yeah. And so I was like, is this a new leaf for Private Party? Like, are they trying to actually be taken as serious competitors now? And so it was a very good match for trying to convey that, if that was the intention. And so that's another one that really surprised me. How we were talking about how, we didn't start out the night up on Wheeler Yuta. We were like, this guy. And then by the end, we were like, whoa, we're now suddenly super big fans of Wheeler Yuta and interested to see what's going to happen next. Well, not quite as dramatically, but we weren't big fans of Private Party and Commander. Well, certainly Private Party. Commander's okay.
Yeah, Commander's alright. They all look good. They look good together.
By the end, we were impressed by all three of them. We're like, more of that, please. Private Party, showed us something. So also another really good kind of development of character. I know there's not a story arc like there is behind Wheeler Yuta, but this developed Private Party and Commander and helped elevate their stock, and that was a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, and it was short, so there really isn't much there wasn't much to the match except really good brief story. Really good
Yeah.
storytelling. Um, and then shortly after that match, I think we had a backstage art. No, we went over to Tony Schiavone and
The
Nigel
commentary.
McGuinness at
Yep.
commentary. Yeah, that's where Nigel explained more about the Tony Khan situation where he agreed to the Grand Slam match with Bryan Danielson if
Yep.
he's able to compete.
And here is one more example of great character advancement and story arc advancement.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Nigel narrates a video package basically showing the history that he has with Bryan um, from back like in the ROH days. Uh, and Nigel basically was saying that Bryan's afraid of him. You know, he doesn't want to get in the ring with him. Like he's talking plenty of smack now. Like he's going all in, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And he looks good. I mean, you have to kind of go. Well, I mean, Bryan is so injured that you guys don't even know if he's going to be available for this match. So it is kind of easy to talk smack that way. But you can say that. But then you could also go, I don't know. Nigel looks good when he's in the ring. My man still got it. So why not? I don't know about you, but I'm a little excited to see the match. And I thought I'd never say that, but here I am.
Well, because it's the culmination of watching Nigel McGuinness run Bryan into the ground on commentary for, 2 years now? And so after talking all that smack, calling him a clam digger and saying, Bryan is lucky I'm not wrestling anymore. He would be terrified to get in the ring with me. So, I mean, you just sort of took it at face value that this is just a bunch of smack talk that's part of, I guess, his character at the announce desk. And we never thought it would come to anything. And then suddenly, as of, what I think it was at All Out, wasn't it? It was either at All In or All Out. I can't remember which one. I think it might have been All In. But where they had the gauntlet match, and Nigel McGuinness ended up being in it, and everybody was like floor jaw hello, because we didn't think he wrestled anymore. And he comes out and he does a really good job in that match. I mean, they didn't win, but he looked great while he was in there.
Yeah, but I mean, he also hadn't been in the ring in years. The dude looked.
Yeah. So he did fantastic. At all. And so here we have the culmination of something that was thought to be a hypothetical and just a whole bunch of vitriol from like old day feuds that now has a very modern day reality about to happen.
Yep.
And Nigel, on top of like showing us the footage of their rivalry from 16 years prior, and it was brutal. I mean, it definitely showed Nigel beating the tarnation out of Bryan Danielson. On top of that, at the end of the video package, Nigel just cuts like one heck of a promo on Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
And this is another one where it's
like, your court, Bryan.
This is another one where, like, AEW... Yeah. This is another one where AEW has totally made us, like, switch our perspective about somebody that we weren't over with, Like, it was like, shut up, Nigel. And he would say weird stuff at commentary, and it's like, how is it that you've made Wade Barrett our favorite British commentator now? And it's... No, we really like Wade, but I mean, Nigel was like, we were annoyed with Nigel McGuinness.
Yeah,
and now we're like hyped to see, because he showed himself to be credible and back in the ring, and he's in the best shape. I mean, when he says he's in the best shape of his life, looking at the video from 16 years prior where he was carrying a fair bit of extra weight, he is not wrong. I mean, the dude has trimmed down. He looks to be in fantastic shape. We've seen him perform in the ring, and it isn't that like old man type of performance. Like, he really got in there and went.
Now
he's you know what I mean, right? Like when an old legend or something comes, and they give him some softball stuff to make him look good. This
no way to talk about Chris Jericho. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Come on, he's trying his best.
The bad apple is currently on his way to our location right now because we've
He's
disrespected
not
Chris
gonna
Jericho.
respect Chris Jericho.
Respect Chris Jericho. Respect the learning tree.
Oh my God.
But suffice it to say, this is another bit of fantastic character arc, and Nigel McGuinness is now in a match that we are very hyped to see because he's been, after a fashion, sort of hyping up this hypothetical match for 2 years of running Brian Danielson into the ground.
Yeah.
So this is like the grudge match to end all grudge matches. Like it's specifically not for the belt. This is just Nigel wants to beat up Brian Danielson.
Yeah, like Nigel has said plenty of times over and over, like you'll get to take the belt home with you. It's yours. It's still yours. And I'm like, he just wants to beat him up. So I can respect that.
Yeah.
After that match, however, we had our first lull of the night, in my opinion. It was the match between Yuka Sakazaki and Serena Deeb. And there's really not much here. I'm just gonna say they got in the match. Sakazaki is entertaining to watch. This is my first time actually seeing her on AEW. I mean, I've seen her, but I don't remember her in any. I don't remember any match that she's had in AEW. This is my first time actually seeing it. Mariah came out for commentary, so she was on the mic, making very uncomfortable vibes. I'm sure for Shivani, between her and Nigel. I'm pretty sure Shivani just wanted to go home at that point. I wanted to go home at that point, and I was in my living room. So,
I mean, commentary on the order of like Mariah saying, "Is that a mirror on your boot, Shivani? What goes on under this desk?"
Oh my
and
Lord!
Shivani saying, "I'm just gonna skip over. I'm choosing to ignore what's being said at commentary."
Yeah, pretty much.
Mariah is a weird gal.
She's very strange, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of liked her more when Tony was around. Now that this personality has been established, it's kind of boring. Versus Tony's absolutely over the top performance.
Timeless character.
Yeah, this one is kind of lackluster. But you know, she still gets down in the ring, and that's what it's all about. I will quickly say that Sakazaki won the match, and Deeb was not happy about that. She was setting up for a power bomb, but Yuka fights back, and she gives her a body slam. She pulls her into the middle of the ring, and she does her Magic Girl Splash, that's the name of her.
Magical Girl Splash. Because of course it is.
Yes, off the top rope, pinfall victory, and then she skips out happy as a clam. And Serena Deeb is not so happy.
Yep. But there's the heat between Yuka and Mariah, because if you recall, Mariah attacks her at the top of the ring stage.
Yeah, I went through the match quickly just to get to that part, because that's the part, so then Yuka is happy as a clam. She goes up to the ramp to celebrate. Mariah tries to blindside her, and Sakazaki's like, yeah, not today. She does some kind of kick. She I don't know what it was, but she did some kind of kick, and Mariah's out. She just knocks her out. Then she goes and she gets her belt. She gets Mariah's belt and politely gives it back to her, and then just waves and goes backstage, or makes her way back. And Mariah is sitting there looking shocked and angry. And then she gets up and she stumbles to the back. After that, I think. Oh yeah, after that we got some good action. Video package of the Outrunners.
Of the youngest men alive.
Yes, training at a local gym, and that was that was amazing.
Everything. It was everything you would hope it would be from the Outrunners. I'm so thrilled that the Outrunners are over and that they're getting a push, and this is all exclusively because they have gotten over with the fans. Like, they're over the top. We are, like, if you distilled 80s wrestling into two men, it's these two men.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. I'm so happy about it. I'm living for the Outrunners right now.
It's great to see. After that, there's a the Top Flight promo with them in the parking lot.
Yes,
they're talking about how
a flight delay.
They were talking about how good some food was, and then Action Andretti went into action and started losing. Apparently, his food was not good. He just started
must not have sat well.
Yeah, it did not sit well with him at all. He didn't get the good pancakes, so he was very upset about the recent losses. And they're all like, "You trying to do too much?" And he's like, "Rage." And then he storms off, and the rest of Top Flight follows him. Then we get Bang Bang Gang to make their way to the ring for the next match, which is Bang Bang Gang versus Cage of Agony, right?
Oh, yes. And I'm not going to lie. At this point in the night, I'm pretty thrilled with Collision on the whole because of all the really good storytelling. Even so much so that I didn't let Serena Deeb bring me down.
No.
She's another one I'm not a big fan of. I don't like her moveset, and she seems like she struggles through some of it, but that's neither here nor there.
She's pretty boring. I'm just going to say that tying somebody up that she does, that dumb move where she sits on them.
I think it's called the Windsor Knot or something like that. Yeah, it's dumb.
God, it's stupid, and I'm just not a fan of hers. I'm not. I used to be. I want everybody to know that, and we'll get right back to it, but I want everybody to know that I used to be a fan of Serena Deeb. Now, I am not. I am not. She came back, and now she sucks. And there's nothing but fear. There's fear all around her when she gets in the ring, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing for her to be afraid. A little amount of fear will keep you safe in the ring. What I'm saying is that determines her moveset. That determines how she wrestles, which is boring now because she's afraid. She doesn't want to hurt herself. She doesn't want another incident to happen where no one can explain to her what happened to her.
Idiopathic seizures, I think, is what it's called, where they don't know the reason for it.
And in that case, if that's how you feel, then your body is telling you what you need to do, which is go sit down. Don't do this. Don't do it. You can love it. You can still be a part of it. There are plenty of people who love wrestling who can't wrestle anymore. And so what do? Commentary, managers, they do what they can to be a part of what they love, but they don't harm themselves, and they don't go in there and give a half-ass performance. Performance. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
No,
so if
I
you
agree.
Can't do it no more, don't.
I'm in that boat with you. She has a really conservative moveset, and a couple of the moves are just dumb looking, and I can't get there. I mean, my sympathies for health issues aside, I mean, you're getting out there to put on a performance that people theoretically want to see, and I'm not here for it. That match was carried entirely by my curiosity about Yuka Sakazaki, and where that went. And I know that they're trying to get into an angle with her and Aminata that we'll talk more about later. But I'm just not that into Serena Deeb. Yeah. But that is a digression from the point I was trying to make. Is Collision on the whole, at least up to this point, had been really, really good. Like, we were both surprised at how good, how much storytelling, how much character development, how they flipped us on people. And I think I even said at the beginning of that match with Serena Deeb in it that, like, given the way the rest of the night's gone, who knows, maybe Serena Deeb will surprise us, and much like we weren't up on Wheeler Yuta or Private Party, we'll suddenly be like, oh my god, we're Serena Deeb fans. She didn't get that treatment tonight, unfortunately.
Nope.
But maybe it's coming. We'll stay hopeful, because this particular episode of Collision really made me hopeful for their ability to put over people that I didn't think were put overable. And so they've got an open mind and cautious optimism out of me. But as good as the whole rest of the night was, I was extra hype coming into this match, because the Bang Bang Gang, I'm super about some Bang Bang Gang. Remember when we didn't like Juice Robinson, and now we're like, yay, Juice Robinson. So
I do, yes. I don't even know what it was. Like, seriously, he goes away and we were like, hey, Juice.
Yeah. So he comes back, and I think part of it is that the Bang Bang Gang, with Jay White, kind of elevated their value and became a really kind of good team, because before that it was just sort of the ass boys, and putting them together with Jay White and Juice Robinson and making this Bang Bang Gang really just was like fantastic. And so I'm hyped to see the Bang Bang Gang, but I'm also hyped to see Cage of Agony, because Big Brian Cage is outstanding. I think he is an underutilized super performer, and
Absolutely.
he has had with Will Ospreay one of the best matches I recall seeing with Will Ospreay in it, and that is a fairly lengthy list, to be fair. Almost every match that Will Ospreay has with anybody is a great match, but I was particularly thrilled by the one he had with Brian Cage, because one, I got to see how Ospreay deals with like a much, much physically more imposing opponent. And while like Brian Cage isn't like particularly taller than him, he is triple wider than him and way more muscle mass. And it also allowed me to see just how far up Brian Cage can step, and he rose to the occasion. So I'm very up on Brian Cage's stock. And Bishop Khan and Toa Leona have just been slowly but surely improving as well. So here you have 6 men that I'm just eager to see everybody participate in it. And I don't feel like it disappointed. Like, I feel like they gave us a real banger of a match. And we really got to see some shiny spots from Colton and Austin Gunn in particular. Because I thought, that we were going to see a lot more of, like, Brian Cage and maybe, that. But the ones who really stood out as putting in some extra time and showing me some stuff that I hadn't really seen from them before were Colton and Austin. And I think Colton in particular, if I remember correctly, but they all brought it. We got, some Juice's loose action. We got the over-the-topness of the Bang Bang Gang. We got the impressive feats of strength. Like, Brian Cage, I think, does a deadlift suplex from over the ropes. Like, better than anyone. Like, almost every, like, I think the first wrestler I saw do it was probably Claudio Castagnoli back when he was Cesaro in the WWE, and even he would have to move a little bit more slowly there, but I don't know, maybe that was the WWE. But Brian Cage does it almost effortlessly and with significantly large men. So his strength, take that out of context. But he makes it look really pretty easy. His strength is through the roof. And all told, I was very pleased with this match. It was just a solid banger. It didn't necessarily do like some of the other matches. Like, there wasn't like this groundbreaking story arc or character development, but it was a very solid, good wrestling match in the middle of this evening, and I was thrilled with it. It was a really fun match. And this is kind of AEW's wheelhouse, isn't it? They're really good with the multi-man matches, because then you just end up with like this daisy chain of high spots, and it's phenomenal. So
Yeah.
on the whole, great match. And just to go ahead and go into the finish of the match, Juice. Oh, I remember this part too. Austin and Colton end up hitting Big Brian Cage with the 310 to Yuma, and in like the smoothest transition I've ever seen, Juice sort of like puts his arms out and like sort of does like a plane flight circle all the way around to Brian Cage, so that he arrives at him just when Cage is getting up from the 310 to Yuma, only for Juice to like grab hold of him and hit him with the front chancery driver, which is Juice's finish, and get the win. And the way it flowed was just so seamless. Like it was amazing. So yeah, great match, great finish. Everybody looked good. The win goes to the Bang Bang Gang.
Yeah. And it was a fun one.
And feel free to take us into the next segment.
Oh, excuse me. That's life.
Life is happening. Oh, okay. Well, from there...
Sorry about that.
It's okay. From there, we cut backstage where you see Serena Deeb, I think, is being interviewed. What's her name? Lexi Nair, I think, is the one who is often giving the interviews. And Lexi's asking her about, what happened out there with your loss. And Aminata comes by and says, so that's how it's done, eh, Professor? Or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And just
basically, she walked by, I went, cat bitch. And just kept walking. And Serena was like, oh, hell no.
And I know a lot of people would probably think that, like, well, I'll address it later. But, I mean, it's not as catty as it sounds with Queen Aminata, because Deeb has been crawling up her butt and won't leave her alone for weeks now. About, like, how she needs to be taken under her wing. And, like, I look at Deeb and I look at Aminata, and no, Aminata needs nothing from you. Like, she is the total package, and you aren't even the bow that is used to tie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, what exactly are you talking about? Under your wing for what? So she can lose? Nah, she good.
Yes, I say that just to suggest that Aminata wasn't so out of line for mocking Deeb as she did, because Deeb has been begging for it for the past couple of weeks. Yeah. But I digress. So at that point, it's just ahead of Queen Aminata's match, and she heads to the ring where her opponent, Robin Renegade, is already there. And I know there's a fair number of individuals in AEW who are largely kind of there to do the job. But I would like to say, as I'm super about some Queen Aminata, but I also am a fan of Robin Renegade. Yeah. Like, she looks like she has some real potential, and even though she shows up to do the job, I think she does a good job, and I'm hoping that at some point she'll get her come up.
Hopefully, yeah. But to be perfectly honest, I'm still waiting for Queen Aminata to get hers. I honestly think that there needs to be. I mean, I think they're getting there. I think they're getting there with her. She's still fairly new, and she looks good. So I think eventually we'll get there with her. But Robin Renegade has been putting in that work too, and I'm starting to see more and more of her. And again, she looks good. She was looking good on Collision, especially against Queen Aminata. So,
yep.
What you see?
In this match, Aminata, like, more or less has her way with Robin Renegade.
Yeah.
But there are a few parts where Robin gets some offense off. But on the whole, I think the biggest move I saw Robin do was absolutely plant Aminata with a really hard DDT.
Yeah.
But off the end of that DDT, Aminata is able to take back to her feet, and she. I don't think it's always been her finisher, but recently her finisher is, I guess they call it the brain drain headbutt, but essentially it's the Glasgow kiss.
Yeah.
And so as Robin sort of tries to close in on her after she got up from the DDT, she gets nailed out of nowhere by this headbutt, and that is Aminata for the win. And it was a pretty solid match.
Yeah. It looks good. It looks real good.
Yeah, both competitors looked fantastic in that match.
Yeah.
And as you said of Queen Aminata getting her come up, I'm kind of hoping that this is the start of it, because like the past couple of weeks we're like, why do they use Aminata just to have her job? She's so good. Well, tonight she didn't job, she won the match. And on top of that, now because she won her match and Serena lost hers, the professor, who was trying desperately to show her how it's done, got super shown up.
Yeah. And so she got super mad about that, and she comes rushing into the ring, blindsides Queen, and then gives her like a leg lock, I think. This is after the match, so Queen Aminata's up there celebrating, living her life, having a good time, like yay. And Deeb was like, hell no to that, and goes in for the attack. She gets her.
I think it was a single leg crab that she had her in, like a really mean looking one.
Yeah. Well, she gets him. She gets her in an unfortunate legadent, which is like leg accident. And then she, officials come out and break it up, and then Deeb leaves, and she's very, very pleased with herself. So they're obviously teasing a feud between the two, which I don't know. Maybe that'll get Deeb up there where she needs to be. Not necessarily Queen Aminata, I think Queen is already there, but maybe this feud will help Deeb out, help her get her footing back. Because she just hasn't been the same since she's come back. So maybe this will be it. I hope anyway.
I think this earmarks Deeb as a full-on heel turn, because if you recall, like her last major match, I think was against Tony Storm, Timeless Tony Storm.
Yeah.
Right? And
I think so.
They were trying to make her the sympathetic face because she was leaning into, I had these seizures and I've had to fight so hard. I'm just
I know.
I'm not mocking that.
I know. For me, it's the way you started it off with the
Well, because that's basically how it was. I mean, that's how they chose to deliver it, and it's fair game since she worked it into her kayfabe act. Yeah. So she was like, I had to overcome all of this, that, and the other to get back, and you were just handed everything, and and Tony Storm is the heel, or was, and so she was supposed to be the sympathetic face, and none of that was working. So now I feel like, again, in another bit of story arcing and character development, this is Deeb turning full-on heel, because before she's like, I'm the professor in this ring, and I take it seriously. Like, she was trying to be like Girl Gunther about, the sacred circle, but she was also kind of more straight-edged about it, like, and now she's like attacking her opponent after the match, like, this is Deeb going dark. So, and if that's the case, then that could be good for Deeb, because I do think she would be better as a little rat heel. And it could be good for Aminata if she starts this feud, and that'll put Aminata as like the baby face, and that could be fantastic. So
Yeah.
this is another bit. Even though I'm not that up on Deeb, if she ends up taking in this and running this heel character well, then maybe we could be. And it could give Aminata a great big push up into the AEW slot because she's been absolutely rocking it on Ring of Honor, which, Ring of Honor is its own thing. I'm not saying it's not, but AEW does kind of use Ring of Honor as a talent scouting and development, business, kind of like how WWE uses NXT. So Aminata's been rocking it on Ring of Honor, so I think she's passing her tryouts, so to speak, for her to come to the AEW roster. And I'm real excited to see that. So this could be another bit of really good character development for both of these women, where Aminata becomes a face in a big old rivalry with a newly formed Serena Deeb the heel, and it could go somewhere. Time will tell. But I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. I am here for it too.
So, moving on from there into what I believe we are coming to the main event of the night.
Already? Yeah, FTR and the Grizzled Young Veterans.
When you see us coming, grit your teeth.
Yes. And oh my lord.
Grizzled Young Veterans. Maybe they'll get over by being somebody that you can make fun of, right? Like, it worked for Kurt Angle. The world initially started out telling that man he sucked, meaning it, unironically. And then eventually it became how we welcomed him, and now it's, his badge of honor. So maybe these guys will turn into those fellas, those guys that you love to hate. But I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic, because right now I just hate to hate them. Because they're kind of like... maybe that's too strong of a word, but I do like to mock them because that whole grit your teeth thing is ridiculous.
They are very packaged. I think that's my problem with them. It's the fact, I just can't wrap my head around the fact that they feel like a boy band version of wrestlers right now. And I know they aren't, right? I know these guys individually have been wrestling for a minute. And so I understand that. But this packaging just feels like that. Like, I don't know how many times I heard them say grit your teeth. It's in their song. It's the name of their move. Every single time they're on camera, they say it. They yell it when they're doing their finisher. Like, bro. And it's like, what's happening?
It feels so random, but before we get there real quick, baby, bye, 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 grit your teeth.
Sorry, oh my god.
But you've got the whole, what does that even mean? Like, they're all like, and remember, when you see us coming, grit your teeth. And it's like, what is that? Like, it's like you just picked a random phrase. Like,
when you see us coming,
scissors,
call your mother. Like, what?
Right. When you see us coming, look both ways before crossing.
When you see us coming, drink more water.
Right, 8 glasses a day. Why do I need to grit my teeth? Like, I don't understand.
I don't know.
When you see us coming, grind your corn. What? It's like they just picked words and threw them together.
Knead your dough.
Knead your dough. Knead your dough. That at least would be like a double entendre, right? Because they need your dough. Like, they want to buy our merch. It should have been, when you see us coming, buy our merch.
When you see us coming, compliment our scarves.
Yeah, what is that about? Grizzled young veterans that are, like, wearing scarves.
I don't know. When you see us coming, all hell chase you.
you're not wrong. They
Am I
do
being
have a
messy?
chase you vibe.
Ooh.
Do have a chase you vibe. I mean, they weren't in chase you. They are from NXT. They were part of
Yeah.
Joe Gacy's faction,
Mm-hmm.
and then like bailed because they wanted to do something better with their careers. I don't know if Grizzled Young Veterans is gonna qualify for that, but anyway, I digress. I have thoroughly buried these men before we've even
Oh
had a match.
no.
But I don't disagree with anything you said. They do look like they're overproduced. Like if you fed like make me a tag team with catchphrase into Chat GPT, it would spit out the Grizzled Young Veterans.
Yeah.
And it's like, grit your teeth. That makes no sense. It sounds like something an AI threw together because it doesn't understand context. So maybe you're onto something. Maybe Chat GPT is responsible for the Grizzled Young Veterans.
See, here's what you know. What like, here's where we need like a sad horn sound.
Wah, wah.
Hold on. There you go. I did a sad horn. You'll hear it. Just for that particular situation. I'm trying though. It's not like they're bad. Okay, they're not bad. Again, this is another one of those situations, and I think they're doing this because they are trying their best to stand out. Excuse me, and I don't blame them. This is one of those situations where if they didn't, they would be just another generic wrestler in a wrestling promotion. So I don't know if this is gonna work out. Like this is on the same level to me as like when Pete Dunne and Butch and who? What was the other guy's name? When they were basically Sheamus's henchmen.
Oh, I would have known it until you asked.
I know. Holland, hey, well done.
I can't remember his first name though.
Can't either. But it's basically that. It's akin to that. Without Sheamus, meh. Which is unfortunate because Holland is a big dude,
Yeah.
I hear he's doing amazing in NXT right now, though. So
Yeah.
Again, boy, remember when I was like, I'm gonna try my best not to drift. I won't get off topic, and here I am, all the way talking about a group that ain't even together. Okay, any skadoodle. I don't know. I don't know about this particular vibe they got going. The Grizzled Young Veterans. I mean, the grit your teeth. It's just too much packaging, and it's too much. God, it's like they're trying to shove it down my throat. Like I get it, guys. You guys are intense. I get it. But show me in the ring. Less like yelling, grit your teeth. Less getting real close to the camera. Talking in a gravelly tone. I have no idea what you're saying to me, sir. I don't know you like that. Please just get in the ring and do something. It was a smart idea to have them against FTR. That's for sure, because FTR is gonna bring the pain. And honestly, aside from their package look, but aside from whatever they got going, it was a good match. Really good main event.
It was a good main event. Now, I will say, for my own criticisms of Grizzled Young Veterans so far, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying about the packaging. Just seems off, and it doesn't quite have cohesion for me. Like, one, I don't know why you would yell at your opponent to grit their teeth, or even why your finisher is called that. It just doesn't. Like, it doesn't click for me. I don't know if that's like, maybe it's a British turn of phrase that I just don't catch.
Yeah,
and if that's the case, then so be it. But since I'm not sold on anything having to do with their presentation, and neither one of them has a personality that stands out in any meaningful way, all I'm left to latch onto is their in-ring work, and neither man does anything that I'm particularly impressed by. Like, nothing stands out. Even Grit Your Teeth is a relatively, I'm sorry to say it, it's kind of a relatively lame double team finish compared to the other options. Like, it's not as good as the 310 to Yuma. It's not as good as what is it? The Shatter Machine. I just feel like nothing stands out about the Grizzled Young Veterans yet.
Yeah.
And so here you have them in with FTR, and I can't say it was a bad match, but it was largely not a bad match because of FTR. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that the Grizzled Young Veterans did anything that messed up anything, but like all of the spots that I thought were worth looking at were being performed by FTR.
Yeah.
And
I thought... I'm sorry, please, continue.
I was just going to say, so I know that the Grizzled Young Veterans haven't been on main roster television that often. I don't know if they're doing like 8 billion dark matches. I don't even know if AEW does it that way. But the couple of times I've seen them on TV, I haven't just been like floored. Like, it's certainly not the impact that, and it's another good example. Nothing they're doing in the ring is even close to MXM. MXM has a not dissimilar trajectory. They're former WWE guys. They came over. They largely stuck with their maximum male model shtick with MXM, but if anything, it's like to the next level. Now they're touching tips and doing a little more stuff that's like more overt. But they're so over the top, both in and out of the ring, that they are the polar opposite of how kind of sort of prefab, cookie cutter, and just kind of boring the Grizzled Young Veterans are by contrast. Like, if I use those two as an example of relatively recent new tag teams that are showing up on TV, MXM is absolutely standout, and Grizzled Young Veterans not so much. Yeah. You know, and that goes all the way through. That's through the personalities of the individuals involved. That's through the uniqueness of their shtick. That's through how they're making their shtick and their personalities over the top. That's through their in-ring work. Because, you know, the men of MXM are absolutely killing it in-ring. So, like, on every possible metric that you would judge a tag team or a professional wrestler by, you know, since both of those two are a relatively fair comparison point, I feel MXM just has them by the balls. You know, I just haven't seen anything from the Grizzled Young Veterans that makes me care about anything other than to make fun of their stupid-ass catchphrase.
Yeah. Excuse me. And almost as if to prove the point that you just made, after the match, of course, FTR won. I think Dax put a sharpshooter on one of them.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
And they had to tap out?
Yep. Yeah, Dax got it with the sharpshooter on Drake.
Yeah. Oh, Drake, man, it's a bad year for Drakes. It is a bad year out there for Drakes. That's all I'm gonna say. Not like us. But FTR wins. They're in the ring celebrating, but then Grizzled Young Veterans are like, the hell to the no on that, and they go on the attack on FTR. But and this is what I meant when I said, almost to prove your point, the Outrunners come out for the save for FTR. Again, I'm thinking to myself, I thought, because you guys are packaging GYV here as these hardcore, like you know, we're gonna take it to you in the ring type dudes. And I know that you said they didn't do anything that was very impressive to you. The one thing I can say that I like about these two gentlemen is they work very well together in tag team form. They do really great and creative ways, or creative things to keep their opponents separate from each other when they're in the ring. which doesn't get boring for me because we always see like this thing where they keep them in the corner and then the person tries to attack their partner, but then they get dragged away somehow or it's always the standard. I say those two dudes come up with some pretty cool and clever ways, almost reminiscent of what I saw between Austin Theory and his partner. Oh my
Waller.
god, my brain. Thank
Oh,
you.
are you
Listen.
referencing Waller and Theory and KO and...
Yes. Yeah. So I saw both of those tag teams on separate nights do some really creative things to keep their opponents away from, or keep the person they're wrestling away from their tag team partner. And Grizzled Young Veterans did some of that on Collision with FTR, and I thought it was pretty good. So I think they work really well together. That's the one thing that I can say about them. But
I'll concede that they did that, but for me, that's still not quite enough.
I feel you. I understand. But back to, and I don't know if it's enough for me either. But I'm gonna give them their, like. I always try to give people their props, even if I don't like them. I'm not a fan of CM Punk, but if CM Punk does something well, I'm gonna mention it. And we have talked in length about something that CM Punk has done that we thought was awesome. So we've done that. I'm nauseous just even bringing it up, so I want to move on.
Moving on.
but when it comes to GYV, I thought AEW. I thought you guys were up on them. You've repackaged these gentlemen. You just brought them back. This is like their first big match that they've had since being repackaged, I suppose. And it's against FTR. Now, whether they win or lose, cool. But I mean, I expected them to do well. You got to stand out. You got to get some attention if you want more heat. If you want this to continue. And I don't know if they did enough of that. But then they kind of got overshadowed by the Outrunners, which is another
okay with it.
Which is another tag team group that AEW is up on now because they are basically fan nominated, right? Another thing that I like about AEW is they do listen to their fans, and the fans said without question, "We want these guys. We love them." And AEW said, "Okay," and they just pushed them up to the front. So I really, really love the attention that they're getting. But they come out and they help FTR.
They save FTR. That is a big one. Like the Outrunners are saving FTR.
Yeah. And so they clear the GYV. Just clear them out of the ring. Outrunners offer the handshake to FTR. You know what handshake I'm talking about.
The handshake. The over-the-top man shake.
Yeah, the man shake. Love it, but yet disturbing. So they bring it in, and FTR, at first I was like, oh, they're not going to take it, but they eventually do. And the crowd explodes.
The crowd erupts. Oh, it's everything.
They explode. And so Collision closes with them posing and just being awesome.
Over the top and cool to each other, and it was just the perfect cap to the night.
It was everything you wanted to see. You gotta give the people what they want.
You gotta give the people what they want.
Man, I missed that. Okay.
I do too. That was fun stuff. But this was a perfect close for a variety of reasons. It was absolute fan service. And I mean, FTR and the Outrunners, posing and being over the top with each other in the ring was just good wrestling fun. Like, that's the stuff that you brought your kid to see. Yeah. And it lasts. I'm not a kid, and I was there for it. I loved it. And on top of that, it's sort of the theme of the night was like putting over, new characters and trying to push character lines and storylines. This was a push for the Outrunners. They're out there in the ring with FTR as the guys that saved FTR from being beaten up. And I it was some great come up for the Outrunners.
Yeah.
And
Here for
FTR,
it.
getting in on their stick with them. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, all things considered, I'm going to have to give this episode of Collision a top tier.
I'll give it a top tier. It was good. It was fun. I was a little apprehensive about Collision. Um, we'll save that conversation for another podcast. That's not about to be 15 hours long. Um, but I was a little, on the fence. But it was good. It was good. It was fun. It kept my attention. Um, I'm even slightly curious about what's happening with Deeb and Queen Amanada, if not more for Queen Amanada than anything else. Any push for her is I'm gonna be about it because I think she's a great wrestler.
I absolutely agree. I look at Aminata and I think she has everything you're looking for. Like, she's clearly athletic, she's tall, she's got that Amazonian style build. And while she's not quite as well muscled and jacked as, say, like Jade Cargill, they have that similar build where they are like 88% legs, and they look like if they were to kick you, you would be instantly dead.
Yeah.
So she could very well be a very dominant force in the women's roster for AEW, no doubt. She has the charisma. She can do promos and work scenes and angles and storylines. She's fantastic in the ring. I think it's absolutely time, if they haven't already, to make Queen Aminata all elite, not just Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's the direction they're going with her.
Me too. Yeah, hope so. She deserves it.
Absolutely.
But I think that was it. That there was Collision.
And it was good. On that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us for this episode of Top Tier Wrestling Podcast. And with that said, go ahead and roll the outro.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.